Is that the Dinah Shore? Should we get started? Hello, Tom. Okay, it's 3 o'clock on April 2nd, 2018, and this is the Architectural Advisory Committee meeting. We ask everyone to silence your cell phones. And Planning Director, if we can have roll call.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Member Dosi? Member Jakeway? Present. Member Lockyer is excused. Member McCoy?
Present.
Member Rotman?
Present.
Member Payline? Present. Vice Chair Cassidy?
Present.
Chair Song?
Present.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. May we have the staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Madam Chair, the agenda was posted on Thursday, March the 29th. This meeting has been noticed and posted in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions on today's agenda? Okay, see none. Does anybody move to approve the agenda?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone second?
Second.
Okay, by Kenny. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that's within this committee purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time when the item is presented. If you want to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda, you may do so now. Each speaker has 3 minutes. Anyone here to speak other than, okay, thank you. We are going to proceed with the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Any revisions from the minutes of March 5th? Yes, Member
I had a question on item number 2, where it talked about the number of trees around the drive aisle. Was it 4 or was it 5? I couldn't remember. You know, we added one more at the end. Does anybody else remember?
I think it was 5 also. I think we took one that was a little more separate from right by that driveway there.
Yeah, yeah.
How about if we ask the staff to check our discussion and see if it's 4 or 5? But we believe that is 5 because we added one more at the end.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, what we will do is we will go back to the videotape and review and verify that it is 5. If that is the case, we'll go ahead and make the adjustment in the minutes accordingly.
Robert? Any other revisions? Obviously, Member Steve. Yes. Okay, seeing none, anyone approve the meeting minutes? Member Tom.
I move we approve the minutes subject to Planning Director checking the tapes.
Thank you. Anyone second that?
Second.
Member Robert? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Abstained by Member John and Member Steve.
And Member Cassidy.
Member Cassidy.
Okay. And I'm just verifying that, yes, we did have 4 members vote on that affirmatively, so we're okay there. Thank you very much, members.
Director, we should have 4, right?
Correct. We have members Dosi, Jakeway, Rotman, and Song who voted in the affirmative on the minutes.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to proceed to unfinished business on Sunshine Landscape on behalf of the Palm Springs Women Club for minor architectural review approval to alter landscape located at 314 South Carilla Road. Staff report, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is a proposed landscape alteration project for Palm Springs Women's Club. As you may recall, you reviewed this project at the January 16th Architectural Advisory Committee meeting, And at the time, the commission determined that the revisions to the plan are necessary to address some design concern. And what you're about to review today is the revision to the initial submittal. For those who are not familiar with the project site, the site is located at the southeast corner of Barista Road and Kahuya Road. The project will be implemented in the open space that are directly adjacent to Kahuya and the Barista Road. As indicated in the staff report, this is an application for an after-the-fact project. And these pictures show the existing conditions of the property. The picture on the left shows the 3 California farm farms that's being installed at the corner of the project site. And the picture to the right shows a view of the project site towards east. And these are the images of the site taken from Barista Road facing west. And these are the images of the front entrance area looking towards south. This is the original landscape plan that you reviewed on January 16th. The primary design issues discussed at the meetings include the application of a southwest brown decomposed granite, the location of 3 California farm farms, and the treatment of the edge of the project site. Additionally, the committee discussed insufficient plant materials and then also a lack of strong composition. In response to the comments that were provided at the January 16th meeting, the applicant made some changes to the proposed design. As you see, the southwest brown decomposed granite has been completely omitted in the revision, and then also a few changes to the plans are proposed. The proposed changes are summarized in page 4 of the staff report. These changes mainly consist of relocation of previously proposed plants, and it just increased the size of the Mojave Gold Rock Island at the northwest corner of the project site, and rearranged plant materials accordingly. The proposed plant materials are consistent with those that are recommended in the Lush and Efficient Garden Book, and such materials comply with the Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance. However, the impact of the changes on the overall design is hardly noticeable, and this design still does not incorporate techniques that are recommended in the Water Efficient Landscape Guidelines. Additionally, a site analysis conducted by City Engineering Associate finds that one of the California farm farms at the corner will likely interfere with the intersection visibility when it reaches its maturity in the future. And staff finds that the revised plan does not fully address design concerns that were previously discussed, and recommends approval of the project subject to the conditions stated in the staff report. Staff and applicants are both available to answer any questions you may have, and this concludes the staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriko. Questions for staff? Member Steve?
Not at this time.
Okay, Member Tom? No. Tom again, no? No. Okay. All right, is the applicant present? Please come up, your name and address.
Richard Calhoun, Sunshine Landscape, 73841 Shadow Lake Drive, Palm Desert, California, 92260.
Okay, do you have anything to add to Noriko's report?
I don't think so.
Okay, questions for the applicant? Member Steve, question for applicants?
Nope.
Okay, Member Tom?
No questions for the applicant.
Okay. Member Tom? Okay. Member John?
Yes. Can you review the decision to remove the darker decomposed granite that acted as a walkway? What was the reasoning behind the removal of that? And then I also see on the newer plan, there's a triangle drawn in at the northwest corner. And there's some new something going on in the ground there. There's also a plant that is literally cut in half in the drawing by the triangle. Want to figure out what's going on with that corner in this newer design. How does traffic flow and things work?
I believe it was required that we add some plants in that area to stop pedestrians from going from the sidewalk up over the DG and over into the parking lot area. So the recommendation was to just add some lower growing plants in that area so people won't continue to cut through the DG and create all the erosion. The triangle is simply showing the 30-foot setback in both directions from the actual corner of the property. Apparently the setback was originally incorrect according to the county lines, and we discovered that after we looked into it and reviewed it. So we went out to where the true corner of the property was and created the triangle for the 30-foot setback. Whether or not the palm tree in the future will grow and create some type of an impact on visibility there, we can just move the tree back. That's not a big deal. So if that's our recommendation, that's what we will do, of course. The DG, originally, the Women's Club members wanted that to be more like a pathway, just to kind of hopefully keep people closer to the parking area when they walk versus just walking all the way through the DG landscape area. But the recommendation was to just eliminate it because it doesn't look very good. I mean, I understand where the committee had an issue with just the aspects of it and the visibility of it. So we went ahead and just decided, well, let's just eliminate it and keep it all the same color. So it just looked better.
On the original plan, it with the darker colored pathway wrapping up around the upper portion of the drawing, it didn't indicate that it was going somewhere, which there is gate access and things to the courtyard up there. Having been to the site when it's in use in the evening with cars parked, it did serve its purpose. So that was why I was curious about what the discussion was. We had recommended that you use some kind of edging to contain it and define it better. But I do think, I did see it in action, providing what you had intended in the original drawing. In terms of some of the other portions that have been redrawn, I would have to agree with staff that it did not necessarily create a cohesive package. And see what the other members have to say. Thanks.
Okay, Member Robert.
Yeah, can I ask you why there wasn't a more significant change in the plan from the last time you were here? Yeah, I mean, other than removing the darker DG, as I looked through the two plans, there's very little change. So can you talk about that?
Well, I believe the reason that we went ahead and put the plants down low in that area was because it was a request. Let's get some plants down there so people don't walk through it. If you've been to the site since this was done, it's taken on a whole different appearance. The plants have grown dramatically. If it's a design that somebody's not happy with, it's an opinion that somebody's not happy with, we can start all over from scratch with a totally different design. We went out and looked at properties throughout Palm Springs and tried to mimic those properties with this design. So if there's a change in how the design is going to be, then we need to discuss what those changes need to actually be. So, like I said, if you go there now and look at it, and I know you were saying that you actually went over and saw the path in action. I've never seen it actually being used, but we're trying to wrap our heads around what is it that you're really looking for, Because, like I said, before this was ever done, we went through Palm Springs area to try to mimic certain areas so that we could say, well, we did it just like that was done over there. And if you go around, you can see that. But if it's a color that you don't like, or it's a texture of rock that you don't like, we went by what's in our guidelines, and we got a copy of that. We went out there and said, well, we can use this type of rock. This is how we can group it. This is how we can cluster it, and that's what we did with the design. And I mean, ultimately, it's whatever you guys want us to do. I mean, it's so we thought we were doing what was required to make sure we were satisfying the council.
Okay, Member Kenny, questions for the applicant? Okay. Question as far as the, you have these bougainvilleas that are adjacent to the main gable of the building. So if you look at it from the pathway coming in, right at the entry of the building, you have the top two bougainvilleas. You see them right there, right underneath the horizontal windows?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you would like for that bougainvillea to grow and spread out with the wall.
It will be aspired to the wall, yes.
Okay. So if you look at the wall beyond, which is the fence wall, so on the right photograph, if you look at it from the right side, you have the you have another wall, which is the fence wall, and therefore there's quite a bit of space in between the Tacoma stands and then the fence wall behind, and there's no sort of landscape planting whatsoever. Was there any was there any thought that there will be some planting on the fence wall to continue that bougainvillea composition on the exterior walls of the building? Because right now it looks like there's something missing between the Tacoma and then the wall in the back.
Well, there's an area where the trash cans are at. So the trash cans are sitting there. I mean, they're there. So I don't think there's really it's a space for the trash containers.
Oh.
So maybe that's the area you're referring to. There's an opening there for the trash containers.
There's a plaster wall that's probably about 12 feet long.
Yeah.
In between, you can't see it because it tucks around the corner in the horizontal horizontal windows. Okay, so it sounds like you had no plans to put additional landscape when staff was saying that additional composition should be created in between the building and then the sidewalk or the parking. This is the design that you're proposing.
Correct.
Okay. Let me ask you, when Noriko presented these corrections for you, did you feel like you understood what her corrections, what is asked of you?
I think the only question would be, is when somebody's talking about this design not being the type of design that's common to Palm Springs, that's where we kind of had an issue. If you want to cluster certain types of rock a certain way, if you want them spread out a little bit more, if you want to sprinkle them, there's all kinds of different ways we can deal with that rock design. But we tried to mimic areas that had already been done here in Palm Springs. And so throughout the entire Coachella Valley, we have different ways of doing things because that's what the Architectural Council wants, or what the memberships want, or what the HOAs want. So the only thing that we may have some concern about is exactly what is it when you're talking about it's not typical of a certain design. We don't know what that design really is. Because when we look at the guidelines and we see the photos and then we look at what we've done, we're going, well, what's the issue here? And if it's the color of the rock, the size of the rock, the way the rock's been placed, whether you like that color DG, whether you like the contrasting colors of the DG, that's an opinion. But when we look at the actual specifications of what we're supposed to do, that's where there might have been some confusion about what is it that we are really trying to accomplish here based on what a committee wants. And that was the only confusion. So we didn't want to try to reinvent the whole landscape design. We just wanted to say, if we need to move a tree because it's in this area, even though if you measure it, it's not, we'll move the tree. We'd rather be on the safe side, so it's easy to move the tree. When we're talking about adding more plant material, we added some more plant material in certain areas to try to get it a little fuller, because I think that was part of the concern as well. And then to actually address the things that were the real issues. The DG, it is a contrast. I don't care for it. It's not my design. I didn't care for that contrast, but that's what they wanted, so that's what they got. So we said, well, let's just eliminate it. We don't need to have those two different colors there. When it comes to the plant material down by where people are cutting through the DG and creating a slip and fall situation, we agreed we should put some plants in there and stop people from walking through there. So those were we tried to address what we were asked to address. And I believe that if you go there and look at it today, it's already changed dramatically just because of how much the plants have already grown. And we could go out there and debate whether we should add one here or one there or one over here. We can do that. I'd be more than happy to meet with anybody who wants to go out there and say, I want to plant specifically right there. Okay, we'll put it there then. It's not a problem for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
All right. At this point, we'll close public comment. Right. Comments from the committee here. I'm going to start with Member Robert. I can't start with Steve all the time.
Well, I think I guess I'm disappointed. So I think when we first reviewed this, we had issues. Obviously, doing the darker brown DG, that is a good change, I think. But I think what's lacking is the overall landscape design. I think some of us, myself included, commented originally that it looked very random. There's no depth to it. It feels very flat. There are opportunities to layer or build up. I mean, it's a very, it's a significant building. It's a historic building. It should have a landscape plan that reflects that. I don't think the plan that's being proposed achieves that. One of the other comments was that it does not meet the 50% plant ground cover. I don't know what we are, but I think we're way off. As it's submitted, I can't support it at this point. So.
Okay, Member John.
I agree with the 50% comments. We're not here to dictate a specific design to say where a plant goes. I think this is a historic building, and looking at it in that context, there's modernism tours, walking tours, guidebooks. There's all kinds of things that direct people around town, and this is a prime downtown property that people like seeing, and, I think we all just want to be able to drive by and say, wow, that looks great. What a great asset to our downtown that this has been redone and is looking great in a desert, low water use landscape. And I don't think this composition achieves that. I don't think people walk by and say, wow, I want them to do my landscape. And I hope that we can get to that point. The dual colored DG, I gotta say I wasn't a fan at first, but now if it had the bender board, keeping them separate, I would be inclined to say keep it. It does its job when all the cars are there. When people are either forced to walk out into the street behind cars that are backing up or walk in front of the cars, it definitely defines a pathway. As it wraps around the other side of the property, as you said, trash cans, there's a gate, there's a reason for it to be there so that you aren't dragging your trash cans through the landscape. It defines where you're supposed to be going. The corner, people are people. They are walking from where the hood of a car would be down to the sidewalk at that northwest corner. So in my mind, when we were talking about more plants in there, it would be more along the actual parking space. I'm not proposing to, create a hazard area if there's too much slope or something connecting the brown DG down to the sidewalk. But a solution probably needs to be looked at because people are walking there. And I don't think putting one more plant in there is the correct solution. I would, your triangle technically is drawn that way, I would be inclined also to say pull the palm tree back, just because when you pull up, it does appear that in the future it will block visuals at that corner.
Thank you, John. Member Tom.
I would agree with
Tom,
the.
microphone.
Is it on now? Yes.
No. Oh, the red light is
The
not
red light.
working.
I think the red light's out.
Okay, it's working. We can hear you, yeah.
No, I agree with the staff's comments. I think it lacks any type of, going back to the design that the applicant brought up, in that what's been planted there and laid out, it doesn't complement the building architecture at all. And when they mentioned mimicking other designs throughout the projects, I mean, there's some well-done designs and there's some not so well-done designs. And what we would refer to this is kind of a spotty design where you have this ground plane and then there's rock sprinkled in and there's nothing working together. The desert accent plants are not working with the boulder groupings. And then the addition of the fractured rock just being laid on top, creating these little dry streams or accent areas, it just doesn't look right being laid on top. Either you have to excavate it out and set it down lower. So I think part of it is the execution, but the whole composition, I feel, does not work either with the architecture. I think in terms of the 50% coverage, you could do a pleasing design and maybe have even less plants than are what is shown on this or been installed on this project. And that would include some landforms, some movement. I mean, it's a large area. There could have been some berming done with rock groupings, accent plants, and have a design that would complement the architecture of the building. So I can't support, I can't support what we see here. I think it needs a lot of work together.
Thank you, Tom. Member Tom.
I think the design looks really scattered. I mean, I count 26 different plant types for a fairly small property, and on a lot of them there's just one or two used, so nothing comes together as a grouping or as a theme with the plant material, and the sizes all seem to be very minimal. Also, on the fractured rock, I count 9 different small groupings. I think it would have been much more effective if there were 2 or 3 groupings that were larger, that had a scale where you could feel that they were part of the overall design. And I also think that looking at the darker colored walkway, it looks to me like it's more of an installation problem. I agree there should be a bender board. It also doesn't even look like it was rolled or compacted, so I think if it were a harder surface that were separate from the other surface, it would certainly serve the intended purpose of making a walking path. So my recommendation would be fewer variety of material, more quantity of the types that are chosen.
Member Steve?
I can't add any additional comments. I think that was the last one I was going to add, but you got me. So yeah, I was going to just say too much variety of sort of, you know, a lot of different plants, and I think coming down to a simpler design would be preferred.
I think this is a classic example of perhaps the user wanting to do a really great job and hiring a landscape contractor to quickly be able to refresh the look of the building. And, you know, the forte of having a contractor do it versus having a landscape design come forth and then be able to talk about a theme, a concept, an idea that's being presented, you know, holistic and cohesive way with the building was not given. That opportunity was not given. And right now we're trying to force to accept what has been installed. And so we're having difficulties because it's more that a concept was not put together at the beginning. And now we're trying to make it work with what is there now. I think some of the concerns is that we need to face here is that they could have chosen to stay with the original design that they have, which was also kind of getting outdated. And this was an effort that they have done to kind of refresh the building itself. Having said that, I think Noriko spent a great amount of time trying to improve this project. And I do have confidence that she can improve the project even more working with the applicant. I am in full agreement with what the committee is saying but I think I'm questioning about how many back and forth are we going to have on this, and then what happens if the applicant withdraws, quit, and then this is the remaining of what we end up with at the downtown, you know, prime location. So I would like to ask the question: could the Women Society be able to come up with an architectural designer or architect, landscape architecture professional to be able to save and endorse concepts that are happening here, and then be able to come back with the application? Or is this a back and forth moot point that they're only going to be able to give us this and a little bit more, and then that's what, you know, we're going to be stuck with?
Madam Chair, might I propose a couple of alternatives for us? Number one is that you all have been pretty clear in terms of your direction, at least from staff's standpoint. We understand what you're saying in terms of the landscape design. One option is to have Ms. Kikuchi work with the applicant in order to institute those recommendations that you all have given. One of the challenges that we have is this is an after-the-fact type of review, as Chair Song has already indicated, so it makes it a little bit tough in terms of implementing your recommendations. The second thing that might be helpful is rather than just taking your recommendations as conditions of approval and having staff work to implement them, what we might do is form a subcommittee of the AAC members to sit down with the applicant and staff and work through some of those design issues to essentially implement those conditions or recommendations that you all as the AAC might have. I think I might feel a little bit better about having a subcommittee work on it. I think that would get us closer to where I think we need to be with the design in relationship to your comments here today.
Thank you, Director. Okay, so those options are on the table. Is there having heard those options, is there a motion that we can put together?
I would make a motion that a subcommittee be formed to work with the applicant in light of where the project is at this time, and work with planning staff to move this forward.
So what's interesting about this situation is that we're forming a subcommittee without an approved design.
If you are comfortable with the conditions as imposed by staff, with the recommendations that we have heard here today, what we will do is work with the subcommittee to implement those recommendations subject to the conditions of approval.
Okay, very good. Okay, so there's a motion by Member Doty. Is there anyone who seconds that? There could be amendments made after somebody seconds the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Any amendments to the motion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. The members for subcommittee? Member John? Thank you. Member Tom? Thank you. Two enough, but should we have a third?
2 is adequate, I think.
Okay.
Unless there is someone who wants to volunteer.
Okay.
Seeing none.
Seeing none. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll be moving to new business items. Item 3, Johnny Was, retailer, on behalf of DTPS B2 LLC for minor architectural application to paint a decorative graphic on the storefront. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. The item before you is a request to repaint a portion of the exterior of the storefront for the Johnny Was retailer, which is located in Suite 115 of 175 North Palm Canyon Drive. The tenant is operating in roughly 1,500 square feet of the 32,000 square foot building. As you can see here, it is located just north of the corner tenant on Museum Way and North Palm Canyon Drive. And they are currently open and operating at this time. So what they are requesting is to repaint the white stucco portion of the surround on the exterior storefront. As you can see in this photo, this is repeated. This is a repeated design element on the building. There are 5 of these on the Palm Canyon frontage, and there are a total of 13 on the building as it wraps around all 4 sides. So when this building was originally approved by the council, the design intent was that each tenant would be able to customize their storefront within that surround. And as you can see here, they've done that with the dual entry doors that has there's a screen behind that with transom windows along the entire storefront. So what they, as I said, what they are requesting now is to repaint the white surround, which you see on the right side of this screen. Currently it is white like the rest. And they have done this in other locations. This is a Palm Desert and Carlsbad location where they have done a similar graphic. So they've given us a sample of what they intend to do here in this photo. It's a photo of the current storefront with the graphic imposed on the stucco surround. So when staff reviewed this application, we considered the architectural review guidelines in section 94 of the zoning code, and we found some inconsistencies with numbers 5 and 6 as it relates to harmony of colors and composition of the building and consistency of composition and treatment. So because this is a recurring design element for the other tenants, it really essentially is the frame that is common throughout. We felt that the proposal was inconsistent with the remainder of the building and therefore have recommended against this application. So that is the analysis that we have prepared for you in your staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions in that regard. I believe the applicant is here. The applicant is here and can also explain kind of the ideas as to the design and why they are proposing it. So, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Chairwoman, I'm going to excuse myself, abstain from this application as I had previous work on this downtown project.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I would like to ask the applicant to come up and state your name and address.
I'm Emily Yang, representing David Majid. We are in 3224 Silverado Drive in Los Angeles.
Do you have a additional information that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so the floral graphics of Johnny Was is based off of their, it's a women's fashion
I'm sorry,
boutique.
can you get closer to the
Oh,
microphone?
sorry. It's a women's fashion store, and their fashion design is primarily based off of bohemian or vintage clothing, which means that there are a lot of floral patterns and embroidery, which is why this graphic is applied onto the flagship stores for most of the stores throughout the nation. The artist that we use, he is one person. He likes painting at night. The painting is water-based on the stucco, and if you go out to Palm Desert, the paint holds up pretty well. It doesn't have any fading. We are open to lowering the graphic intensity, discussing where the location of these graphics would potentially be located.
Okay, but according to the renderings that you have is basically on the face, facing Palm Canyon, as well as the sides of that relief, stucco relief.
Right.
On two sides, correct? I'm guessing it's not
on
on the roof.
outside too.
Yeah.
We propose it for as many places as possible, because in the other flagship stores, the graphic is applied on the outside and then continues inward, which is why we want to have the graphic wrap and surround into the storefront. But because it's not applied as of yet, we are working with the committee to see what could be approved.
So are you saying that the painting itself is going to continue on beyond the storefront into the inside of the wall of the store? Okay.
Possibly.
And then does it go all the way to the changing room?
No.
Okay, it stops short.
Yeah, right now we're just dealing with the facade and the outside application.
Okay, got it,
Yeah,
got it.
just
So
the
inside,
outside.
outside on the face, but then it stops at the storefront.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, questions for the applicant? I'm going to start with Member Robert. He
So
volunteered.
would you clarify, the intent is that you're going to potentially carry the graphic to the interior of the store, and do you know how deep it will go into the store?
Right now, well, so what we do in the other stores is that we continue it inward, but right for this application, it's already open, so the artist will not be going into the store and painting inside the store. It's only that little 4-inch that wraps around that'll be going in. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah,
The
we
surround-
understand. So,
Yeah.
okay.
It's just is it
Yeah.
the little return on the
Yeah,
outside?
in the
It's not
plan,
going into the
no.
interior of the store?
No,
Because
just
the
that
store is
little.
already occupied. So if the artist has to go in, then they have to cover up all the merchandise.
Got it.
It's a lot of
Okay.
work, yeah. Okay. Member Kenny, do you have questions for the staff? For the applicant?
Just to just to clarify, this graphic would be painted over the existing white stucco, that the color of the white would not be changed.
Correct.
And you said you can or are open to varying the intensity of the applied graphic.
Yes, and palette color as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Emily, have you, in your other stores, done perhaps an application to the clear story windows in which it has that sort of flowery pattern actually on the glass or Okay, so nothing on the glass,
Not on the
nothing
glass.
suspended from the ceiling.
No.
Okay, so it's
It's-
always been the
Stucco.
the stucco around the, okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. So I'm going to start with Member Steve. Comments on this case?
I don't know, this is a tough one because I actually like it, but I do agree. I think it's appropriate for the store, but I do agree that it does sort of raise a question of consistency over the building. And you know, if you allow this, what happens? You know, then you get somebody else wanting to do something similar next door, and then it becomes kind of a mishmash of colors down the walk. So that's my concern.
Okay. Member Tom?
I think the white surrounds, as they exist around all four sides of the building, are a really strong architectural element that gives a nice definition to the individual spaces. So I think it would be unfortunate to take away the simplicity of that. And I agree that once we open the box of somebody doing it, is everybody going to do it? But I want to pick up on Chairman Song's thought that maybe the graphic goes on that transom window, so it's on the front of the building, but not on the white surrounds around it. I like the colors and I like the look, but I just think it's not, it just takes away from the consistency that the building has.
Member John?
I was at so many meetings up late in listening to the people going back and forth on the overall design of this that it's hard for me to say, let's go change it. There were a lot of people put in a lot of work to get to where it is today. That I like the last comment in the transom. If looking closer at the Palm Desert facade, it's inside of a contained area. I do not like it wrapping around the outside away from the windows. If there was a discussion of it just being on the face and wrapping back towards the store itself and not wrapping around the part that is not the store, I'd be open to looking at that.
Hey, Member Robert.
I think I pretty much agree with the comments that have been made by my other committee members. I don't mind the design, but I think it sets a precedent, and I'm really concerned about if this was granted to Johnny Was, you know, what's going to happen to, you know, 3 or 4 other stores, and it's just going to compromise the consistency of the building. And I would be open to looking at a graphic potentially on the transom. So I'd be open to that.
Hey, Member Kenny.
I concur with the comments that have been made so far. I like the idea, I like the floral design, and I want to be supportive of the idea of carrying the brand out as far as possible. And I could see if the white surround stucco had more visible than that couple of inches on the inside facing towards the doors section, then it might make sense to consider allowing painting just that inside section and running it inside on the walls at least a few inches, kind of make the glass disappear, sort of an idea, but it's only a few inches. I don't know if it would really work. So short of that solution, I would be more supportive of looking at something on the transom, or this idea might sound crazy and really get into the signage program issues, but allowing that pattern on the signage, on the letters, the fronts of the letters of the signage might not be too horrible, but I don't want to open a whole can of worms into the sign program. So I think the transom idea is probably the best solution.
I think the other idea to propose is that, you know, obviously on the inside, because this is a good 16 feet wide storefront opening, is that either walls on the north side or south side, if they have that whole floral design inside, so when you're walking by in either directions, you can see that, and that also lets sort of like Johnny Was is inside or like that. I think that could be also open for consideration. So I think we have a motion that could be put together by Member John.
So I guess a motion to allow for consideration of the graphic on the transom area, but or on the exterior, just on the inside edge, if there's a continuation through to the inside of the store, but declining the option of wrapping it on the face or around the sides of the
The exterior side.
That's it.
And I think to double highlight the fact that we do like the artwork. It's just where it's located. Yeah. So we're approving on the alternative solutions, not on the solution
Yes,
proposed.
you are rejecting the design as proposed, but offering as alternatives, number 1, to allow the graphic on the transom windows, or number 2, to allow the graphic on the interior returns and extending into the store.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? If we can get Member Tom Dosey back. Okay, thank you very much. And we are going to be moving to new business item on number 4, VIP motor cars requesting an amendment to an existing sign district to add 133 square foot sign at the Mercedes-Benz dealership. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This actually is a sign district that encompasses both the Mercedes-Benz dealership and also the Porsche dealership. So several years ago, the City Council approved what's called a sign district, which is rather unique. This is the only one in the city that includes 4 auto dealerships, including the Mercedes-Benz. This is going from the corner of Cherokee westward. So we have the Mercedes-Benz of Palm Springs, we have Palm Springs Infiniti, then Palm Springs Hyundai, and then the BMW and the recently approved Porsche dealership. So when the Mercedes-Benz came in to add one additional sign, it was around the same time that Porsche was discussing their new building. So we've decided to bring these in together. So that's what's here for you today. We're going to discuss them separately, and you can make motions based upon the separate applications. But as one sign district, we felt it was best for AAC to review it together as a cohesive package, and also the Planning Commission, which this will hopefully move on to. So looking at the Mercedes-Benz dealership, in your packet you have a series of 12 different pages, and if we focus on this slide that's before you, everything that's in E number is an existing sign, and they're only requesting one sign, the R9, and that is to add one 33 square foot sign called AMG, which is a brand of the Mercedes line. So if you look at this slide on the bottom right-hand corner, this is the sign that they're requesting to add, an AMG sign. On this slide, this is a graphic of where it would be located. It's located, if this is the front facade facing, looking from East Palm Canyon at the building. So it's the AMG sign that's off to the left of the existing Mercedes-Benz sign. So let me click onto a picture of existing conditions. So this is what it looks like now. The Mercedes-Benz sign is to the right. This sign will go on between the other 2 pillars that currently do not have a sign. The sign is a little bit smaller in size. It's 2 feet tall versus the Mercedes-Benz, which is 2.5 feet tall. And obviously, the font is a little bit different. But it's constructed of the same material. It's a box that's a metal box with push-through letters that are halo lit that will shine from behind. So if in the staff report, there is a large table on page 4, and this table includes all the approved signs in the sign district. So it includes, at the top, it talks about BMW, Infiniti, the Mercedes-Benz, and you'll see that the AMG logo has been added to that, the Hyundai, and then we'll get to Porsche in a minute. So I'm going to move to a table that's at the very end of my slide presentation here to talk about, I know it's kind of small, so how we calculate signage for these, this corner location is they get 50 square feet for 50 frontage, and then there's a different multiplication if you have more frontage. So it's a fourth and then an eighth. So the total square footage that is allowed for the East Palm Canyon frontage is 70 feet 5 inches. They're requesting greater than that. So they're requesting a total of 90 square feet. So with the extra 33 on top of that, that is what the deviation of the sign district is requesting for the Mercedes-Benz. So an extra 33 over what normally would have been allowed. And a sign district allows them to ask for this deviation. So that's Mercedes-Benz. Let's go on to the Porsche. So the Porsche building is a brand new building. The AAC reviewed this several weeks ago, and the Planning Commission just recently approved it. So they're requesting a total of 4 signs, actually, I'm sorry, 5 signs, a monument sign at the entryway that's towards the bottom of the slide, a dealer name sign. So the monument sign, let me go back, is 36 square feet. The dealer name sign is the large sign that is on the front of the building. That's the red. That's the Porsche sign at the bottom of this slide. That sign is 91.5 square feet. There's a service monument sign, which will be also at the entry when you first come in off of East Palm Canyon. That's 35 square feet. It's low. It's it's under 8 feet tall. A service directional sign, which is at the very end of the street towards the mobile home park. There's an extra entrance. And that service directional sign is 4.5 feet in square feet footage. And then an accessory logo sign, which is at the main entrance, that will have the Mercedes emblem and some other verbiage. So the total signage that they're requesting is 170 square feet. When you use the same calculation that we used for the Mercedes, they get 50 feet and then a quarter on top of that and an eighth. They can have 170 square feet total. They're requesting 80 square feet over the maximum as what they would normally be allowed. And once again, a sign district allows them to ask for additional square footage. So looking at a sign district, staff feels that this is a unique situation within the city. The proposed signs with their individual letters and the mounting methods, we feel is justified and is not excessive in the amount of signs that are requested. In the Mercedes-Benz, adding one 33 square foot sign that's similar in design and color we feel does not cause sign clutter on the building. And then the Porsche dealership with really only having one main sign on the building. It's minimalist in design, and from the beginning, the proposed 91 square foot sign would be consistent with that building. So that concludes my report. The applicant is here. I can answer any other questions. And just to follow up one more point, the Porsche dealership, if you remember, the AAC had some recommendations that certain sections of the building come back, that they will come back to you. The signs, as we discussed, was a separate issue, and that's what's here before you now. But you will see other portions of the Porsche dealer come back. And that concludes my report, and the applicant is here.
Thank you, Glenn.
Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate what Mr. Malacker has indicated. Let's start with the sign program for the Mercedes dealership first, take action on that item, and then continue with the Porsche dealership, if we could go in that order.
So we're going to be asking Glenn questions on both. However, when we are about to ask the applicant questions, we'll do it first on anything that's related to Mercedes-Benz, and then after that, we'll do it on the Porsche, so we can expedite the case. So questions to Glenn on both cases. Yes, I'm going to start from Member Tom back there.
Glenn, a clarification, please. On your page 5, where you list the square footages, it looks to me that for Mercedes, their existing signs are a 70 square foot sign, a 31 square foot sign, and a 22 square foot sign. So that means they have 122 square feet existing when they're allowed 70 feet, and they're asking for 33 more. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Hey, Member Robert, question for staff.
Well, just to carry on that same line of discussion, there's also listed a double-sided pylon sign at 25 square feet and the star emblem, which I also assume would be included in their totals for signage. Is that right?
Yes.
So we're actually close to 200 square feet or something?
Right, but we only looked at the East Palm Canyon side. Some of this signage is on the Cherokee side.
But, oh, I see. Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that. And then the other question I had was on the Porsche dealer. And as I look at those, as I look at the proposed signs, let me find the picture so I can. So on the last page of their presentation, which shows the different signs, well, the one that's in the top center, which is PA3S maybe, that looks, what is that on the left side of it? It almost looks like it's an attachment to a post.
No, I see, right, on the left side, kind of where the 3.5
Where it sticks out, the little silver thing that sticks out?
Right, we'd have to ask the applicant. I'm assuming it's 2 posts in the ground. I don't know what that gray box is.
Okay. And then I guess I'll save the next question for the applicant to explain what the profile, what the number 1 of what that sign is made of, and if it's directly applied to the glass or what it is exactly. The other question I had was on the overall plan for the Porsche. I know Planning Commission approved it with some conditions, and I know, can you review those conditions? And I think the reason I'm asking is, I think some of them have to do with pedestrian access, and I just want to know that, what they were, a clarification on what they were, especially as it relates to the potential location of the monument sign and the other, what sign number is it? Sorry. PA3, the directional for service, those two, and if there's going to be any kind of conflict with potential pedestrian access.
Since Edward came back, he took over the project, so I'm going to try to. So I know that there's a sidewalk that runs here, and there was discussion of a connection to East Palm Canyon and how you connected up here.
Okay.
So my understanding is that there will be, at some point, there'll be a sidewalk. Flynn's nodding his head, and so is Chris. A sidewalk along here that will connect to whenever East Palm Canyon the sidewalk gets built.
And there, will there be anything on the south side? On that, you know, on this.
Where the car stays.
Where the car,
Or here.
down, no, down and then, yeah, continue down from there, right in there. Is there anything proposed for that or discussed about that?
There's an existing sidewalk here. Chris is shaking his head, yes.
So yes, you are correct in terms of the sidewalk connection on the north side of the site, and then also making sure that there is a continuous pedestrian connection along the front of the property. That was part of the conditions imposed by the Planning Commission in addition to some additional landscaping in those areas. In terms of the signage that's proposed, the placement of the signage, I don't believe, will impact the imposition of those conditions relative to the pedestrian access, that the signage will be behind the pedestrian sidewalk.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, Glenn, we have one more question for you.
Okay.
Hi, Glenn. Just to clarify, we're referring to this as a special sign district. In terms of setting precedent for elsewhere in town, are there any other special sign districts in town?
Yes, there are. The Convention Center has a sign district. The Port Lawrence area has a sign district, and I don't think downtown does. That's a sign program. So there are very few.
Okay. Do you know if any of these other sign districts have had any exceptions like this made? It's okay to say no.
Let me just go ahead and jump in there. In terms of the convention center, obviously, there are some exceptions made for the types of signage and the size of signage there. So yes, it is fairly common for a sign district to have exceptions from our sign code. That's one of the reasons why it exists in our zoning ordinance, is to address unusual situations or unusual uses where the standard regulations may not be appropriate for those types of uses.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, is the applicant present? State your name and address.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members, and city staff. Jerry Johnson for the applicant VIP Motor Cars Limited, 15 Bent Tree Drive, Little Rock, Arkansas, but frequent flyer back to the desert. And if I may just give a little history, VIP Motor Cars has been operating at the corner of Cherokee and East Palm Canyon since 1974. We took over stewardship of the corporation 20 years ago this year and have been pleased to grow the automotive presence of the city. Worked for 5 years to acquire and convert the Indian allotted land where BMW and soon to be Porsche now sits into fee simple and was responsible for the construction of the BMW dealership in 1998. We've turned over stewardship of the BMW and soon to be Porsche to Mr. Todd Blue at the Indigo Auto Group. We're still pleased to be in the city of Palm Springs and be corporate citizens for the past 20 years. We appreciate your consideration of this sign, which is a high-performance sub-brand of Mercedes. And we really believe we need this sign to remain competitive and to give proper communication to our constituents that we represent. We've gotten special dispensation from Mercedes-Benz because of the prestige of our market in the city of Palm Springs and because of the affluent clientele that we appeal to. We want to take business from Audi in Rancho Mirage and soon to be Ferrari in Rancho Mirage, and we believe we need this sign to communicate to our customers that we represent AMG, which is the high-performance brand of Mercedes. And I'm available for any questions and appreciate your consideration of this proposal.
Thank you. If you can stay up, we might have questions for you. Thank you, Jerry. Questions for the applicant? Okay, Robert?
On the AMG sign with the sort of, is the proportion of the sign, is that part of the logo so that there's a background color and the AMG and the stripes on the left side of, is that all part of the logo or is it just the stripes and the AMG?
No, it's all part of a consistent look that's required. It's called the Auto House concept. So everything that exists on our Mercedes facility now is Auto House compliant. And this signage is Auto House compliant. It has to be a black background with the silver lettering and the halo lit.
Are the proportions such that if the sign got bigger or smaller, it would just
It would
scale?
grow, or, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
All right, so first discussion on the Mercedes dealership. We're looking at the additional signage of AMG. Any comments from the committee? Member Tom.
I think the building is really cluttered with so many signs already, and if we were to approve this, I would hope that it maybe the scale of the AMG could be increased so it matches the 2.5-foot height of the Mercedes sign. Get that consistency there. Obviously, you're going to have a different font just because they're different logos, but I just struggle a bit with so many signs on one building.
Before we move on, Glenn, on your chart, when you're giving us the signage, the wall signs, based on the comment from Committee Tom, the AMG signage is right now at 2 foot and a quarter inch high. The Mercedes-Benz signage on the right side, do you happen to know what that size, what the height of that sign is?
Yeah, yes. Give me 1 second here. It's 2 foot 5.
We're looking at 5 1/4 inch increase in order to be consistent.
Yes.
Or reducing the Mercedes-Benz sign. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it's one less thing that the eye has to adjust by having that continuation of the 2 foot 5 1/2 inch on the AMG signage. Okay. Jerry, is Mercedes-Benz going to say no to you?
I believe they will, Madam Chair, and I was going to suggest.
Are you getting a bigger signage?
Glenn, could you put back up the elevation that shows the two signs, just the front elevation with the new Mercedes-Benz, the new AMG sign? Side by side, don't you? Right there. Yeah. Could you enlarge that at all, Glenn?
I can't.
Okay. I believe it looks proportional, and it's based partly upon the distance between the poles and the running length of the lettering. So I believe it looks proportional, and I would respectfully request that you approve it as proposed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Member Kenny.
At first, I was going to agree about the sizing, and then even before the comment from the applicant, I realized I think what they did there is they made it overlap by probably a couple inches one section of the poling, like they did with the Mercedes of Palm Springs, taking two sections of the poling. So they're sort of following the installation theme, if you will, on taking one section of poling instead of two. And therefore it is the size that it is. So that's where my eye went. So I'm actually okay with it in the size that it is.
Okay, let's see. Member Robert, do you have a motion in place? With comments.
You know, when I look at the overall building elevation, the first thing that jumped out was the difference in the heights of the two signs. And I think it would probably be an improvement to have them consistent. And I understand what Member Kenny's mentioning, and part of my questioning of the applicant was about the proportions of the signs and whether, if you adjust it. So I wonder if we could make the box bigger, but keep the AMG the same. So, the box overlaps the columns consistently on the Mercedes and the AMG, but that maybe it's 5 1/2 inches taller. Maybe there's a little bit more black space on the top or bottom. But I really, it bothers me that it's visible, that the two signs are not the same height. So.
Okay, so we're discussing here about 5 and 3/4 inch, 5.5 inch difference. I can make justifications either way, depending on which direction you're coming. You know, there's a perspective, and so do you respect the spacing, as Member Kenny was saying, from that it's equidistant from the column and the overhang, or do you respect the actual height of the signage? So I think based on that, we need a motion, and we need the committee to vote on it. Member Kenny.
It is sort of a 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I mean, I could go either way, but just for, based on the information we have in front of us, I'll make a motion and see how it flies, that we approve the application as submitted and see what happens.
Okay, anyone second that? Okay, Member John. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, the motion passes. Okay, let's go to the next case, which is the Porsche auto dealership. Okay, question for the applicant. Yes, Member Tom, starting from the back.
On the last page of our drawings, there's a sign here that appears to have layers or something. Can you explain what that, on the bottom right corner there?
That's just showing the ACM panels above it that are twisted as they go up. The signage is just on that one portion lower next to the glass. It's white ACM and it brands Porsche and with the crest and the letters.
And what are the little shelves for?
They're not.
Member Jackway, that's the, if you remember when it came to the AAC, there's red LED lighting bands, and this is a detail of that band. That's not before the AAC today.
Oh, okay, so that's not part of the signage.
Not part of the signage.
Thank you.
Sorry, can we have your name and address?
Madam Chair, members of the committee and staff, my name is Chris Hector, representing Indigo Auto Group, 3737 East Palm Canyon Drive, Palm Springs, California. If I might clarify one question that was brought up earlier, if you look at the sign branded service, that's an optional sign. That little fin on the left side, that could be mounted to the building, have a possibility there. On our situation, it will be a ground sign similar to the one on the left. That will not be there, that flange.
Thank you. Okay, other questions for the applicant? Member Robert.
Talking about the sign that's in the detail number 1, the front elevation. What is that? How is that? What is that sign made of? Or is it that's in part of the storefront?
Yes, it's a white ACM panel that is part of the store. White glass, white ACM panel.
Okay.
It goes all the way up the front, and the crest and the letters Porsche are mounted on it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Member John, do you have questions?
Okay, I'm going to ask my usual question. It says Porsche crest and dealership name are illuminated with LEDs. What does that mean? Is that internal? Is that external?
On that number 1 situation?
Let's see, the one that says city location, the one that says service, and the one that says parts and service.
They're illuminated behind with LED lighting behind the crest and behind the letters themselves. They're cut out.
So it's not ground mount shining. Okay. And will the parts and service?
The directional sign up in the right-hand corner?
Yes.
That is not illuminated.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, other questions for the applicant? Okay, see none, thank you very much. Okay, I'm gonna start with Member Steve.
I don't really have any comments. I'm comfortable with the design of the signage.
Okay, thank you. Member Tom Jakeway.
I think it's a very sophisticated signage program. I like it a lot. I think it speaks to the brand. My only comment, which is very small, on the big red Porsche sign, at the right end of the sign, the letter E aligns perfectly with one of the vertical lines of the building. On the left end of the sign, the letter P looks like it extends about 3 inches past that vertical line. Is it possible to pull the sign in just enough so that each letter aligns perfectly with one of the vertical elements?
Or completely not?
Yes.
One or the other, right, okay.
But I think this is such a strong element. I like it very much.
Hey, Member Tom Dozy.
I agree with Member Jakeway. I believe that the Porsche sign is an integral part of the architecture, and the overage and square footage, I think, is fine because of the element that this is part of the building.
You, Member John?
I have no further comments at this time.
Okay, Member Robert?
No additional comments.
You're good. Okay, so Member Tom Jakeway, do you have a motion?
I would recommend that we approve this submittal as submitted and just ask that they investigate the possibility of making the signs slightly shorter so that the elements align with the vertical lines of the building.
Okay, anyone second that?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Member Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to move to item number 5, amendment of the Architectural Advisory Committee Rules and Procedure.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, the Planning Commission recently updated its bylaws, and so I felt that it would be appropriate for the AAC to follow suit and do the same thing. The Planning Commission's chief mission in amending their bylaws was to eliminate the requirement for the August meeting, as our other boards and commissions and city council typically go dark in August. They thought it would be appropriate for the Planning Commission to do so. My feeling is that if the Planning Commission is going to go dark in August, then the AAC should also have that opportunity to do so. And so that's one of the reasons, or one of the things that we are proposing as a change to your bylaws. There is a caveat to that, however, and same with the Planning Commission. In case there is a business need of the city to hold a meeting during the month of August, we would do so. But absent that requirement, we would go ahead and make a change to our calendars to show that AAC will be dark during the month of August. There's also a couple of other changes that I would propose. The second change that I would propose is relative to the meeting dates, and that's on page 2 of the bylaws. We used to meet on the second and fourth Monday of the month. We haven't been doing that for a couple of years, so I thought it was important that we update that to reflect our actual schedule. Another thing that I am proposing to do is similar with the Planning Commission on page 5 of your bylaws, giving the chair the opportunity to bring applicants back to the podium as may be necessary to respond to questions, and in particular, where we are imposing conditions of approval to see if the applicant agrees with those conditions of approval. And so we've added language to do that. Another change that we made to the Planning Commission bylaws, and that I would recommend that we do for the Architectural Advisory Committee, is to identify how we use subcommittees. And so the language that I'm proposing here today is similar to what we've done with the Planning Commission. And in terms of those, let me just give you an example. On page 11, in terms of compliance review with conditions of approval, this describes the subcommittee that we're forming for the Women's Club landscape plan, where you've approved a project and you want to make sure that the plan as implemented conforms to your conditions and recommendations. And so this, again, outlines how we use subcommittees for the Architectural Advisory Committee and we are doing that in line with the language that we've adopted for the Planning Commission in terms of the use of their subcommittees. Another thing that we're doing with subcommittees is we also need to post the agendas of subcommittees and make those available to members of the public as part of a greater proposal on the part of City Council to become more transparent in terms of how we operate. We'll use those same procedures with Planning Commission and Architectural Advisory Committee. One of the last changes also coming down from the City Council is that all of our procedures and our bylaws need to be gender neutral. And so you'll see changes to the language throughout the document so that it does become gender neutral. As we've had both male and female chairs, it's helpful to have that so it addresses that situation as well. So those are the changes that I would propose to the bylaws. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any corrections or additions that you might propose.
Yes, Member Tom.
Two things. On page 6, paragraph 16B II, you missed a couple of the herselfs, himselfs.
Ah, okay. I see one. Let's see. And I'm sorry, I'm blind.
There's
I see
one on the very
two.
bottom. Yeah, 2.
Okay. Was there another one that I missed?
No.
Okay.
And then on page 8, the second paragraph makes no sense to me.
Let's see. Members during that meeting?
And or be physically removed from, I think there's a word or two missing.
Okay. Let me go back and I was probably typing and got interrupted. So I'll go back and make a change to that paragraph. I appreciate you pointing those out.
So as the committee members, do we acknowledge that we have received this, or?
What I would like you to do, if you're comfortable with the changes as proposed and the modifications that Member Jakeway has indicated there, what I would need is your approving vote on the bylaws. With your approving vote, then they become in effect.
Okay, Member Robert.
Flynn, I can't find it now, but I know I read it somewhere. And it's just clarification, because it's something different than what we've been doing in the past. One of them is that if there's been an exhibit posted, we have gotten up out of our chairs at random. And if I read this correctly, we need to get approval from the chair to do that?
Yes, you're correct. What we might do, hang on just a second. I'm trying to find that reference because I know what you're talking about there.
Oh, I think here it is. It's under Rules, Decorum, and Order. It is B number VII. Members of the committee shall not leave their seats during a meeting without consent of the chair.
Let's see. Okay.
And then the other one was that when we address staff, we've been addressing staff directly, and if I remember reading correctly, we're supposed to address you.
That is correct. I will say that we don't always follow those procedures ourselves.
Well, okay.
That we as staff also need to go through the chair in responding to questions, and it's just something that we need to police ourselves a little bit better on. In terms of leaving your chair, maybe let's just add a caveat there that except to view exhibits.
Okay. And then you mentioned about posting an agenda for subcommittees. And so how does that work exactly? Because the subcommittees I've been involved with, it's been mostly an email back and forth and, you know.
What we will need to do now is that we will need to have at least 24-hour notice of the subcommittee meetings. Now, typically, correct me if I'm wrong, we typically set those up about a week in advance. Do we not?
No.
Okay.
We get an email from staff and say, here's what this is.
Okay. So on subcommittees where and there's going to be a distinction. Sometimes we do things via email. We conduct business via email. That doesn't require any type of notification.
Okay.
Where we do meet physically in person, that will require us to post an agenda, and what we will do, we have a bulletin board right outside council chambers here. We'll post a notice there, and then also on the city website, on the Architectural Advisory Committee meeting page, we'll post a copy of the agenda on that page as well. So we'll do 24-hour notice in advance of physical meetings of AAC subcommittees.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if the committee has accepted that there are some corrections to be made, but in general, these are going to be the new amended rules of procedure. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the updated rules of procedure proposed by the city staff.
And that is with the comments that have been noted.
With the comments that have been noted. Thank you, Flynn.
As the committee needs to hear the list of those changes, or you're confident on Director Flynn to have gathered them? Do we run them by?
Yes, let me just go
We're all
by.
shaking no.
Oh, okay.
It's a vote of confidence in Flynn.
Yeah, it's all
that's
here.
pretty clear.
Okay. All right. All those, I'm sorry.
Do we have
so
a second on that?
second on the
Second.
motion. Member Rodman, thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right, so I think we have a new planning commission member present with
I'm
us.
sorry. Let me introduce to you Planning Commissioner Dennis Woods, who just joined our Planning Commission 2 months ago. And he will be here with us during the month of April to observe the AAC meeting. So we welcome Mr. Woods.
Thank you. And so if there are no additional staff comments and, I'm sorry, committee comments, we say it's 4:30 and we're adjourned. Thank you.
Sorry, Madam
Oh,
Chair, I just
I'm
have
sorry.
one quick announcement. Hopefully, there are 2 members who have been appointed to the Downtown Park Subcommittee.
Oh.
And that is Member McCoy and Member Lockyer. Okay. There is a meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. in the large conference room. Unfortunately, we didn't have any materials to distribute to you ahead of time. So hopefully we will have a copy of the park plan that the City Council has seen. I don't believe that there's any changes to it at this point in time, but that will be the subject of our meeting tomorrow, and I'll send a reminder to Mr. Lockyer as well.
Okay, really excited to see the next steps. Okay, now having said that, we're adjourned. Thank you.